Welcome to the Roundtable Consult. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Williams, and I'm joined as always by my wonderful co-host, attorney Sonia Madison, and I almost vomited in my mouth when I said wonderful. But good morning to you.
I didn't realize the truth destroys you so much.
Yeah.
You sound like these extreme Republicans who can't accept the fact that, hey, the government has to go on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right. Look at it. You're like, let's get right into it because I want to talk about this. Well, all right. So let's get right into it. Yes, Kevin McCarthy was ousted as the Speaker of the House this week. How does that make you feel?
I see the big smile on your faces. It's conflicted because on the one hand, I feel like, man, Republican Party really does need to do a reflection. They are clearly not only off the rails as it comes to how government works, but they don't even have a unification within their party. And so to some degree, it's like, hey, y'all clearly needed this. But then on the other hand, again, you can't get stuff done when certain positions aren't filled. And if there is no House Speaker, then the House is not going to be reviewing any legislation. And I feel like ultimately some of these extremists, that's what they want. They just want to dismantle government altogether in favor of a Trump dictatorship. And I'm just in awe that this has gotten to this point. And I want to emphasize, this is the first time in American history that the Speaker of the House has been ousted. And also be clear, Kevin McCarthy, because you tried to blame this on the Democrats. It is your party's doing that got you, particularly you, because you decided that you were going to list as a condition for the position, the ability for one person to get a motion to vacate you out. But this is your doing. But again, this is, it seems to be a clear path of just trying to dismantle government in general, and we're not stopping it.
Yeah. Well, I think there may be a silver lining in this. Well, first of all, Kevin McCarthy did this himself, not just because he permitted that rule in order to get elected as the speaker. The other issue is that he understood that if he didn't bow down to the extreme right and his side, that he would require Democrats in order to help bail him out, which they came to the rescue with passing the bill to at least the continuing resolution. At least they passed a continuing resolution to keep the government functioning. And that's only because he had Democrat votes. And then he subsequently went on the news circuits and started demonizing Democrats. You're like, dude, don't you realize that Democrats are the only ones who can save you in your position at this time? And so Democrats are like, look, if this is the way you're going to do it, then no, we're not going to save you from your own party, from the attack of your own party, which makes sense to me. And then the other part of it is that you're not trustworthy. We could come to your rescue. We could save you from being ousted. They could have saved him from being ousted, but he's not a man of his word. And so every time he makes a promise to someone, he winds up breaking that promise and going back on it. And so why would the Democrats then go ahead and put themselves on the line, possibly face backlash from other more extreme Democrats for having gone to bat for him, and they don't get anything out of it, nothing at least that they can rely on. I think there could be a good thing about this. My hope is that the moderates in the House will nominate somebody who's moderate, not Jim Jordan.
It could be a slow motion crash.
Right.
He gets in there.
But anybody else other than the only way that you're going to save the next speaker is one, if you appease the far right elements of your party, or two, if you involve the Democrats to say, hey, we need you in order to legislate. Novel idea that you should actually need the other people from the other party to negotiate and create laws and pass laws. So it seems like they would want to nominate somebody who Democrats can at least tolerate and can stomach. And then hopefully some legislation can get done. We'll see if they'll do that over the next coming weeks when they nominate somebody.
Well, and I will say, I do not want the Democrats to cave. I do not want the Democrats to allow even a moderate Republican to be in that seat. And I understand what you're saying. To me, it's probably the more rational, mature thing to do. But it has just been so clear. Again, the Republican Party is such a mob, I mean, they have made it clear that they are not going to put forth legislation that is bipartisan because of their extremism. I want the Republican Party to clean up their party before, again, Democrats have to start saving the day by having to, again, work with people who are so extreme that really what they want to do is dismantle the government. I want the Republican Party
to in about 35 days or whatever, we still have the government might shut down.
We still have, and also to be clear, what was passed was pretty much, hey, keep the status quo. We're not going to touch necessarily Ukraine, but Ukraine already has funding. We're just not going to add funding. And we're going to make sure, again, everything that's in place, we're just approving the ability to add more money. So it wasn't as if they, made sure that there were any Democratic policies in there. They just made sure the extreme Republican Party's stuff wasn't in there, like the reduction in Social Security or the reduction in Medicaid. Like that stuff just wasn't going to happen. And so I mean, I hear you, and it makes sense. I'm just like, no, Democrats, keep standing your ground.
Do the thing that makes no sense.
Hakeem Jeffries all the way. If anything, those moderate Republicans need to say, you know what? I'm no longer going to be aligned with these extreme. And if that means I need to go with a modern Democrat, if that means I need to go with a more conservative Democrat, then fine, I will do that, versus Democrats having to go with a more conservative Republican or moderate Republican, I should say.
I think Joe Manchin might be in the running.
No.
he's already a closeted Republican.
Again, Hakeem Jeffries, or like I said, the Republicans are going to have to come together on a more modern Republican. But I'm just like, the Republicans need to rein in their extreme party.
Well, we need to have a functioning government, and I don't think that's going to happen over the next 35 or however many more days we have before. Happening. Right. Yeah. Well, we got something else that happened that hasn't happened in history this week, and that is that a former president stood in court, while he's being tried now, I guess, for a civil case. What do you make of what's going on with that? The clown show, they said, is over.
Once again, you cannot make this stuff up. I mean, the fact that obviously it was funny that he claimed he was denied a jury trial at the conspiracy. And then it turns out, no, your lawyers specifically checked and waived a jury trial. But also the fact that he is still going on social media, making threats to the judge, making threats to the clerk, and a judge has to admonish him in real time, force him to take it down in real time. I'm just in awe that the former president of the United States, our leader, is conducting this way, and we are not saying, hey, you are not above the law. Enough is enough. We're not going to let this go through.
Well, I think it's just reflective of our devolving society. That's what it boils down to, because this type of behavior in years past would never have been tolerated. And we have such a devolution in our society that is, I think it's on a course that is irreparable. It's you can't change it. It's going down that pathway, and people are becoming more and more incensed, more and more what's the word I want? Volatile, or they're losing it. They're becoming unhinged as a society. And I think we must necessarily progress down this path of anarchy, which is where it's going. And the Republican Party is really helping to usher that in for us. And not to demonize the Republican Party, but the reality of it is it's human nature. And so human nature will be as it is, regardless of which political affiliation you maintain. If some of the same things were happening on the Democratic side, we'd be doing the same things as well.
We would. Well, I mean, but I feel like we would be holding Democrats accountable. Al Franken, there have been Democrats that have had to step down because of questionable behaviors. And so, and again, I'm not saying Democrats are perfect. They're not. I'm just saying right now the Republicans are just too extreme.
Yeah, well, they may, but right now we might have a composition of Congress to hold each other accountable. But eventually what will happen is those people will be replaced, just like the moderate Republicans have been replaced by the extreme factions of the parties. And what'd be interesting to find out is the whole thing. What's the senator? His wife killed somebody in a car accident.
Oh man, I
Yes.
can't think of the name,
Ah,
but
gosh,
yeah,
Menendez.
yeah,
Menendez, I think is who it was.
yeah, because he's
Menendez is
also
his name.
investigated. He's also under investigation.
Yes, and so it looks like now that his wife some years ago must have been involved in a car accident during which a man was killed, and it was squashed. And they're now trying to find out how intensive how intense was this investigation into the cause of it. She apparently called 911 and said a man threw himself on my windshield.
Only certain people can say that, and,
Right, exactly.
and the dispatcher will say that sounds okay.
Okay, you go on, carry on.
We'll be sure to help you. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Right. I don't think they checked her for her blood alcohol level or anything around that time, but it will be interesting to see what comes of that. And there are still some people who are kind of tight-lipped about not requiring that he steps down. And you can always justify everything that we do around here. We can find a justification for it, and you will find somebody who will say, "Oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that." And so right now they're justifying his intention to stay in office and to while he's undergoing this investigation. The different Republicans will criticize it, but they did the same thing with Matt Gaetz. They said, well, he can continue to be in, and guess what? It worked out for him because no charges were brought against him. So
asking Menendez to step down. I mean,
they are
asking him to step down. Unlike, like you said, the Republicans were not asking Matt Gaetz to step down.
Yeah.
And I want to hit one more thing before we move to our guests in terms of volatile, because you mentioned volatile. I think it's breaking this morning that Israel has declared war against Palestine. I want to say not against Palestine, but yeah. And again, I'm
most
not
likely, I guess.
I'm not a biblical scholar, and I'm definitely not a historical scholar, but just my brief understanding, it makes sense biblically to start there. We know that once the Egyptians crossed over, Moses, Holy Land, that particular area is essentially Palestine. And so a lot of people may refer to it as the Holy Land, right? But we also know through Old Testament fights, whatever, Jewish people lost it. We get to the New Testament, it's on to the Romans that they have it. And again, while Jews are still there, we know that they still have influence, and they have this hope that Jesus is going to come and save them and reclaim the land. What they really got,
well, they don't call him Jesus. They still look for a Messiah.
Messiah, yeah,
Messiah.
What they really got was Jesus, who started pretty much a whole new religion, Christianity. So you got Christianity, Jewish, and you got the Roman Empire, all that. Now we fast forward to pretty much the 19th century, and it's been taken over more so by Arabs and the more Muslim nation. And so in that, they have obviously been attacking Jews, and now but the rise of Christianity, the rise of God has now more become global. UK decided, hey, I want to protect the Jewish people. And so they go take over the land and try to set up an area, Israel, just for the Jewish people. Well, as you can imagine, the Palestinians, the Arabs ain't like that. So they continue to fight it out. UN tried to step in and say, hey, why don't we just have 3 sections? We put there's people here, these people here. Jewish people said, cool, yes, great. No, I'm cool. Still the rest said, no. Because everyone is attacking us, and we want to make sure we protect, our land, our people, whatever. So the war raged, but there was a wall built or something built that kind of helped isolate or separate the people. Well, Palestinians have been jumping over the wall. I think they've attacked, whatnot. And so here's where we are. Israel's now saying we're going to attack back. The United States have said we're going to defend Israel the best way we can, which is going to be interesting considering that, again, we've had extreme Republicans saying no more funding to Ukraine. So I don't know how they likely are going to be about us sending money over to Israel to help them aid in the war. But nonetheless, I'd imagine that's also going to be a talking point as we go into a new election cycle.
Yeah, well, they'll support that, no doubt, because Israel.
I don't know. These extreme Republicans.
Israel. Well, those who are evangelical believe that Israel can do no wrong, and they will not even, the Bible, because the Bible says whoever will be a friend to Israel will be a friend to me, and those who will be an enemy to them. So they take that to heart and say, well, that means we must be able to palliate anything that Israel does. No, that's not what being a friend is. Being a friend is saying, when you're out of line, I'm also going to reprove you. I'm going to reprimand you. But the minute somebody who does something like that, I think Biden got into a lot of trouble with the Republicans, because he was like, look, I think that this is the wrong thing for Israel to have done in the first place. It doesn't mean that we don't support them or anything like that. And in fact, a friend would, I think there's a scripture in Proverbs that says better is the chastening of a friend than the kiss of an enemy, and so what happens is that, we have to keep those things in perspective, that every chastening that you get is not necessarily with evil intent and indicative of disfavor. But so many bad things going on in the world today. We need to have a little laugh every once in a while. We need to have more laughter.
Typically, we see you and there's a chuckle, but now we're
exactly. It makes you so happy when I'm around. So, but yeah.
we actually have an actual comedian that may get us our belly laughing, right? And no pressure. But we have Tariq Galloway. I call him Ty, really good friend of mine, but also a comedian. He is, for the most part, his day job is participating in the military, but his hobby, his passion, his natural talent is functional dysfunction comedy. I'm kind of putting that word in there. He started performing in 2007 at Funny Farm here in Atlanta, and he's continued on through various other outlets and venues here in Atlanta. I'm sure he's going to be national and probably global within any minute if his wife, my line sister, has anything to say about it. And he's also into observational comedy as his niche and as his passion. So thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you waiting until you got on screen to comb out that beard and make sure you look all good. Please throw down these gang signs. And I'm just kidding.
This is also a good brother of mine, another brother of the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Frat so nice you gotta name it twice.
Oh,
A Psi Phi Nu Pi. What's going on, my brother?
Man, thank y'all for having me.
Consult.
I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me. It seems like Sonia Madison is a bit of a comedian.
Sonia Madison is just funny.
But looks aren't everything.
Oh, love it. I love it. I love it.
So tell us, Ty, a lot of people like myself are funny, but that doesn't mean they're comedians. So what made you not only decide this is a career or passion that I want to pursue, but how did you even go about determining how to pursue that career path?
I think for me, when I first comedy has always been natural to me. And it started when I was single digits. I want to name how old I am now, but when I was single digits, I did stuff that was funny and it awarded me opportunities. So like my grandmother and I were super close, 50 years apart. And when I say close, like we hung out a lot. And it allowed me to tap into an older audience, an older understanding, an ability to communicate with people and it be received well. That opportunity led to treats, snacks, toys. So I was like, wait a minute, I'm on to something. Fast forward, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I was raised in Annapolis, Maryland, but in Maryland, we moved around a lot. And because we moved around a lot, it was incumbent upon me to fit in. And the best way to fit in is just be like, hey, that's the funny guy. So when I came back to Maryland, I went to Annapolis, and I mean, there was always dead space. And I was like, you know what? Laughter is needed in this space. So I did my thing. 2007, I think I went to go see, I can't think of the brother's name, but I was at Funny Farm. They had a little thing on a little card on the table, said, hey, you want to learn how to make your funny? You want to make yourself funny? Come to this class. We'll take your funny and help you, kind of package it. I was like, that'll work.
This was a class?
It was a class, Roswell, Georgia.
Wow.
Shout out to Marshall Childs, who owned the Funny Farm. He now owns the club that you came to see me at, Sonia.
Okay.
Laughing Skull downtown. And then big up to my boy, Big Kenny. He was my guru, if you will, walked me through how to make my funny, interject here, do this. And I fell off military, traveled, went to Afghanistan, and, but once I got back on my feet, my wife and I talked about it, and she was like, you know what, do what you love. And here I am. So
Nothing like a supportive Black woman, ain't that right, Mark?
Absolutely. Hey, I mean, supportive woman, whether she's Black or not, but it's good that she's supportive.
Hey, nothing like a supportive Black woman. I said what I said, right?
Well, I'm just saying, for all my brothers out there whose women ain't black, you still hopefully you still have a supportive woman though. But anyway.
Well, tell us, how did you determine your niche? Because I mean, I think when, at least for me, Dave Chappelle uses a lot of current events to make it funny. And some people may find it not funny, right? But then like a Kevin Hart, he uses, I guess, his more personal life, like to make it funny. I think Courtney Wayne, I think, is similar, even though from my perspective, having 10 kids by 5 different women isn't necessarily funny. But how did you decide, okay, this is the niche I want to stick with, and this is the niche that I'm most funny?
I believe that 5 people can see the same thing and get different things from it. And we are taught, when I say we, Black people, we are taught to maintain an even calmness through society as we go about life. And disturbing the status quo is not good. However, I'm like, hey, didn't anybody see that lady just trip up? I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I saw it. And no, be quiet. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet. But it's needed. The news does it. They just put a negative spin on it. So why can't I put a positive spin on it? You get what I'm saying?
Yes, positive spin on getting tripped up. I get it.
Right, exactly. Being clumsy.
It's still too soon for Sonya right now. Still too soon after she fell off the watermelon truck or the apple truck, whatever it was. Too soon. Sorry. She's still healing. She's got the scars still. So.
Yes. If only Ty was there to exchange my tears for laughter. It would have been
exactly. Just because your leg is like this doesn't mean.
Just remember, your tears brought other people laughters.
Oh yes, my pain brings them joy. Right. I think that's Trump's philosophy as well. Oh. The pain of Black people brings joy for white people. It is.
You can't have all those people poisoning the blood of America.
I know, right?
He actually recently quoted that. That was, he's gotten some backlash recently about using that phrasing, which was very similar to what Hitler has used as well, talking about the blood of the nation is being poisoned by the immigrants. And so when you see these things, I think you rightly said, Ty, that, 5 people can look at the same thing and see 2 totally different outcomes, or to see 2 different perspectives from it, or multiple different perspectives. Right. We see that play out constantly in our political world today, which is, I don't know if it's becoming more prevalent for us, or if it's just that I'm getting older and I'm paying attention to it more. I don't know if young people are paying attention to this or not, or if they can actually avoid some of that. And they probably can't avoid it by not watching TV, because they're always on YouTube or something else.
And Ty, I will answer for the young people, but you answer as the comedian.
And the delusional people in the room, raise your right hand. Don't be shy, girl. Don't be shy.
Don't be quiet now.
All right.
It's weird because I really didn't get into politics until like 2001. And that's because I got deployed and my life changed forever. But paying attention to it, for me, And again, I'm answering the question on just the politics and how they've changed, right?
Mhm.
And what
So-
have it changed for comedians? Because I take it you guys approach it differently. Like if you look at the evolution of even like a Daily Show, I mean that kind of started
Oh,
well
man.
before Trump took office. You know,
So
I mean,
brilliant, yeah.
there's you can laugh to some degree at what was going on, but now it seems like the evolution is I don't even know if we can laugh too much anymore. Like the policies have gotten.
It's so absurd. Yeah, to your point. So the Daily Show, definitely Daily Show, and I would say the guy with the glasses at the talk show. I can't think of his name.
Stephen Colbert or
Colbert,
Donald.
yeah. Both of those guys. So they've definitely shed a light. They've shed a political light with comedy to say, hey, look at this hypocrisy. And for me, again, '01, I was worried about what I was worried about, and I didn't really become aware of politics until I deployed. I deployed, I went overseas '01, and emotions were high, and 9 months later, I'm like, I mean, it was just some buildings. You get what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing over here? And then when the war kicked off in '03, you start thinking about like, hey, it's brothers that look like me I'm getting shot at. What we over here for again? You get what I'm saying? So you have to evaluate the situation and say, why are we here? And then what are we benefiting over here? And then the kind of what you guys alluded to before I came on, the it's almost like the selfishness of the leaders you have to see it and kind of be like, does anybody else see this? And there's truth in comedy. So that's, I think, what comes to light in nowadays, that if you're not political, you just have to make light of, I mean, from president, mayor, I mean, like the mayor of Tallahassee, come on. Embarrassing, yet, hey, when the sun set, is it too soon? Can we write? Okay, was he naked? Did he have clothes on? Like, come on, man. Like, and we were all on his bandwagon. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Oh man, and then DeSantis got in. So that was,
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I get you now.
So that exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was in the wrong party for that one.
You were.
He's like, I'm going to change my party affiliation. I am now
Exactly.
a Democrat, and I believe in LGBTQ.
Right. Hey, turn up that Macho Man song. I think it's really great.
Exactly. Yeah. So, question for you. So, you were deployed to Afghanistan, and you were in active involvement and actively involved in war and fighting, correct? Yeah. Do you find comedy in that? And is it taboo at some point or other to, even while you're in the midst of it, to be able to find those moments like, did you see that? Or is it necessary, even for that matter, at some point to take a reprieve and see some of the humor that's in some of the tragedy? In my field, they call it gallows humor. Is that we deal with a lot of things that are kind of heavy on you as a medical professional, and you deal with people dying all the time, and then you may make a joke about a certain thing amongst your peers that other people who are not part of that field would be like, oh, that is so callous and that is so cruel. How could you say such a thing? But everybody else who participates in it catches the humor in it, that gallows humor. Do you see a similar thing like that sometimes in the midst of war?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when we have a missile shot at us, and shout out to the I can't even remember, my mind is gone now, but we were being shot at from Iraq, Patriot missiles. So the Patriot missiles would intercept the bombs that were shot at us, and they didn't have the most high-tech GPS to find us and kill us, but they were getting awfully close. You only got to be right once. So I remember they had us in the hallway. We had on Mach 4, 4 levels. Mach 4 is you got on all your chemical gear, which contains charcoal, which keeps you from getting infected. So you got all this chemical gear. I'm from Baltimore, so if anybody's seen The Wire, I'm like, oh, this is just a Saturday, more or less. It's just bigger weapons. But I remember us being in the hallway, men and women, and everybody sitting in there, and it's kind of like the 60s when they told you go under the desk for nuclear. And I'm looking, and I really have a problem with silence and sadness. And I'm like, yo, I can't. If I got to go out like this, we gonna laugh. I can't have everybody just sitting around this joint. And the purpose of Mop 4, like I said, is to keep stuff from getting on you. So I made a statement, and it actually broke the fear. And I said, hey, you guys, if you guys are scared, or if anybody has to go to the bathroom, you can actually take a shit on yourself because nobody will smell it. And everybody started laughing. It was just like, well, you know what, we are kind of tripping. Like nothing's even gotten close enough to hurt us. Let's calm down, take a step back, and trust that the weaponry that we have to protect us is here to do what it does. So yes, to your question, there were times in the midst of it that, you know, we were under attack. And I'm like, hey, listen, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But what I'm not going to do is be cowardly in that space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the comedy does hopefully bring people together, but I also know it could separate us. I feel like if you were looking probably 20 or so years ago, particularly with your observational comedy, I'd imagine you could do a stand-up and start making fun of whoever dresses crazy or whatever you see. Right. But now, I mean, do you worry about cancel culture? Because I feel like if you start making fun of a guy in a dress, I don't know if people consider it funny anymore.
Unless the guy is Donald Trump.
And even then,
right.
you
who's going to come to his rescue with that? Wait a minute.
Right.
Exactly. Like Chris Christie called him what, Donald Duck? I don't know if it
and we got to wait for the Disney lovers to attack him. Like, wait a minute.
Well, again, as well as MAGA people, like I said, I mean, you've got people going after the judge. You've got, I mean, it just seems like anyone that kind of crosses Trump to some degree then has to rally their family to say, hey, we might have to have a window of protection for a while.
And that's the scary part. You know, I'll get to the question that you asked, but the scary part, all these groups, based on what you were saying the first 10 minutes, all these groups feel empowered. And, you know, I have an idea of how you guys grew up, and it was basically do as I say and not as I do. But I think everybody does what they want to do now, and there is no accountability for it. So with your question, I did a joke when I first started, was like, I had on a camouflage. I mean, I had on a camouflage bracelet, and it was something supporting some church thing or whatever. And I said, this guy came up to me and was like, hey, what you doing, Slim Thing? And I said he was a colorblind gay dude. And I have, shout out to my, you know, LGBTQ family. I have people in my family who are that, love them to death. I have nothing against them. And again, I think every group of people have some idiosyncrasies about them that we can all laugh at. You know what I mean? So I worry about what you presented to me as a father more than I worry about it as a comedian, because we all know that, hey, Frank, you didn't have to wear the hot pink boots. You could have wore, you know what I mean? You could have wore your suede yellow ones. You're doing too much.
Right. And you'll have a son that says, I want to do what I want to do.
Exactly.
And I'm going to wear my hot pink boots. And if I come home with a black eye, you can go.
Right.
Right.
And then that's when I have to do this and be like, hey guys, sorry about that. Yeah, so
that you don't worry about someone throwing a can at you, because you know that people are now throwing stuff. And I take it to some degree. I'd imagine, at least when I see like a Dave Chappelle or some comedian, or even a Stephen Colbert or John Oliver, I feel like their purpose is to use comedy to send a message. And then there are comedians like a Kevin Hart or whatever. Their purpose really is to just make you laugh.
Right.
I mean, and so I don't know where you fall, but I'd imagine, you know, particularly if you're doing observational, maybe it's more laughter. But at the same time, like you said, you are a father. I'd imagine there are still some things that you still may present in your comedy as concerns that you have while making light of it, but still trying to send a message?
I try to send, well, I always try to make a message because, there is truth in comedy. And once we can laugh at it, and if it sticks with you, hopefully you'll learn something from it. You know what I mean? So I do a joke about going overseas, and they said we were going to war. There are 3 things that you have to give them if you get captured. And I'm just like, hold up, wait a minute, captured? Like, yo, are we giving up before we start? Like, first, let's address that. Let's go over the plan.
Are you telling me you're
going
to put me in a position where I'm getting captured?
Exactly. Right. I don't think teams go in there and be like, all right, guys, if we lose, like, wait, what? Hey, coach, I need to talk about winning. Let's do that first. So I always try to make sure there's a message, and I don't go for the low-hanging fruit when it comes to laughs, because the low-hanging fruit is easy and it falls in the pool of ignorance sometimes, because it's just, look at that gay dude. You know what I mean? Like, I feel a little bit more evolved from that. Yeah, I just think there should be a message in everything that's said, and I make sure that the message is a thought-provoking message and not just a message of believe this because I believe this. You know what I mean? How would you feel? And I think that's the the compare and contrast that I do with the jokes when I do present them and say, hey, think about this on your way home. You know what I mean? So
there are I've gone to several comedy shows. There was one Earthquake, actually, one.
oh yeah.
I was gonna say, we're supposed to pause for a shock. Wow, Mark, you go to comedy shows?
Yeah,
you,
I know.
You actually know how to laugh.
Exactly. Why do you think I show up here opposite you every week? Because I enjoy a good laugh every Saturday. But I think his most recent tour, this was within the past year, he has been touring in. And one of the criticisms that a friend of mine gave him, who also went to the show before me and saw it before me, he's like, yeah, he was preaching the whole time. And, I don't think he should be preaching. Just get up there and make me laugh and everything. And so I listened to what he was talking about. And I don't know that I would necessarily say he was preaching, but a lot of times people do get that, comedians do get accused of quote unquote preaching, whether it's not necessarily the gospel, but it's some moral lesson or something like that. And it seems to tune certain people out. But then some people can do it and they can do it in such a way where people don't even realize they've been preached to.
Right.
And so in your class, when you take this class, are these like the lessons that you learn, or is it just something that becomes innate to say, okay, when you're getting ready to go into something heavy like this and you're trying to give to bring home a message, then this is the way that you deliver. This is what we found to be the most effective method. Now, I'm a PhD, so I'm a researcher.
Right,
so I would be looking for, hey, has anybody studied this?
He
Are
has
there any
to study
statistical?
how to make people laugh. He's not naturally funny. So not only was primary education not enough, he had to go get a PhD to learn how do I make people laugh, because I just bring tears and I want to start bringing laughter. So school him, but he still needs more help. Ty, how do you do it?
Hey guys, I'm Ty Galloway. This is Family Feud 2. So because both of you guys are educated, I look at it like this from the class standpoint. Hey, did you see that cat jump up on the table, write something funny, and then you come back and rewrite it, because the first thing you wrote was good, but when you go back and look at what you wrote before, how can you improve on that? And I think that's one of the things that comedians do, because one of the formulas in comedy is make a left when they think you're going straight, or you're going to make a right. You get what I mean? And that's what the unexpected is like. I didn't even see that coming. That was great. And that's what the class kind of helps you embellish on. Like, how can I take these guys on this ride? One, let them lose track of time. Two, and then they go home with something like, hey, you know what? I didn't even know that show was an hour. I didn't know he talked for an hour and a half. Did you like the part when he talked about, man, I didn't even think about that. hey, you know what? We need to look at ourselves because we are the people he was talking about in the, oppressive nature, or, dare I say, white privilege.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying?
He
But
didn't say that on the roundtable console.
I apologize.
The opinions and views expressed by guests on the roundtable console do not necessarily reflect the views of the roundtable console. Okay,
I've
carry
had to
on.
say that so much because of what Mark says, that Mark
I
knows my
apologize.
speech by
I
heart.
apologize. But I mean, those are the things that you try to bring to light because, again, so case in point of what I just said, I remember us being in the military, we had an officers meeting, and one of the officers who was very senior, some 15 years plus, she said, this is, and I was in East Point, E-Print. She said, this is the first time I've ever worked with Black officers, and I don't know how to deal in this situation. That's a real thing. And we have to, as Black officers, can't be like, what? Did you choose all those white assignments? No, we have to be aware that, hey, your path to where you got to brought you here. So rather than crucify you for not being around us, let's teach you so you can be better when you go somewhere else. And I think it's the same thing with audience members. When you don't hear something or you get a shock value, rather than criticize, listen and see what the point is. And if it does offend you, then yeah, okay, no more money is going towards this comedian or this brand of show. But if it's being said, it might be a reason it's being said. And just process it. Because it may not affect you, but it's a million people plus in this world.
Do you go back and look at your performances and critique it afterwards?
Man,
Yeah.
I cringe. Oh, because you always want the perfect show, and it's never going to be perfect. You know what I mean? So I write out my jokes, and then I'll go back and be like, man, I left out a whole line. Audience doesn't know it, but I know what I wanted to deliver. So that's what
Is that why a lot of comedians do so many tours? Like, hey, let me try this again in Atlanta versus.
Right.
So would you consider a Trump a comedian? Because I mean, he makes fun of disabled people. And then if you do, should there be some type of moral responsibility to comedians like that? Because we give corporations moral responsibilities. We give politicians moral responsibilities. I'm in the legal profession. I've got my whole moral, civics, ethics that I have to abide by. Same with the Mark and the medical. Is comedy? Is there moral ethics anywhere, or is it free for all? If it makes someone laugh, then it's gold, even if that offends a group of people.
I think it's based on a person, because you should have a moral compass in order for you to have morals. If you don't,
but I just want to know in the professional, because I mean, some professions, not only if there's ethics rules, and if you cross that line, we will remove the privilege of you having this profession, this license. I don't know. I mean, maybe comedy in the same way, but when I think of Donald Trump and him making fun of someone that was disabled, or even the latest one, poisoning the U.S. I mean, people people laugh or whatever he got, and that was what his point was when he made fun of a disabled. It was to get people to laugh, but should there be you crossed the line, or no?
But who holds him accountable? Yes, to your point, your question, yes, it should be. But again, like I said, I was listening to you guys intently the first 10 minutes, and yes, the Republican Party needs to clean up because nobody there is hope. Everybody is, we said in Baltimore, I'm out for self. And if you can help me get more for myself, then yeah, I'll look the other way. But I have a problem, and this, maybe you can address this, but I have a problem when you supported Donald Trump and then you go run for re-election. Like, did y'all forget what he just supported? How can you guys re-elect this guy?
Well, I can't even laugh. It'd be different, because I feel like before, when he ran in 2016, people took it as a joke, and too many people were laughing instead of being like, no, hey, y'all, this isn't funny. Right. And then we get them. And so but I don't know then if we say, hey, it's on us, we now need to have a hard line as to what's funny, or again, if we say, hey, that's comedy, and that we don't regulate comedy. If it makes someone laugh, hey, freedom of speech. tough luck. Sorry that oppressed a group of people in the process.
Right, right.
But I mean, if you view it as an art form, then what other arts are regulated other than, what can be presented to children? Basically, there's just saying
But
comedy
even
is
on
an art.
television, like even art, they'll blur out certain things. I mean, you still have FTC, guidelines that what will govern what you can say in certain platforms. But here we have a president who is on major platforms doing all this stuff. It's like, should there be a line here?
Put him on a chitlin circuit. Put him on a chitlin circuit. And tonight's headliner is former President Donald J. Trump. And let's see how that works out.
Huge. But it seems like every time a line is drawn, a wave comes and wipes it away. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know that. I do.
You're like, hey, this is it.
I guess I'm asking for y'all comedians to come together and say, hey, but we got too many people hurting because of our comedy.
But going back to what I was saying before, disabled person, he has, what he said, the blacks, did he say, it was him that said the blacks?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
And that was probably the least problematic thing of all the stuff that you're about to list. He called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said he can grab someone by the genitals and be okay. And people are laughing at this, right? I mean,
his taxes now, which is coming to bite him. Like,
he said I could shoot someone and y'all will still vote for me. I mean, it just, and people are laughing.
And again, I don't want to. I am grateful for this opportunity to be on this show, but again, like I said, there are certain things certain people can say, and there's certain things other people can't say, and the people that hold them accountable are biased. It seems to be a bias because there's no line. So who do we look to hold that line? Because again, even in the comedy, there's a spectrum, and I think just everybody falls on a spectrum. And now that the spectrum is so wide because there's so many different groups of people, it's hard to govern and hold people accountable, because you're like, oh, they're just saying it down there, until it comes down to their spectrum. And it's like, wait a minute, I've got a problem with that. So.
And I think every unspoken rule, at some point it exists until somebody pushes the envelope and pushes the limits of it. I mean, even we talk about the dress in the House or in the Senate, dress code. Now you got Fetterman, who's now saying, well, why do we have to wear a tie? Why do we have to wear a suit? Why can't I wear a hoodie and shorts? And now there's a lot of people in an uproar about that because at least right now, for the short term, people are bothered by that envelope being pushed or the limits being pushed. And that's, I think, one of the beauties of comedy is that you can actually push the limits of what people can tolerate. Now, the question is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is it
pushing these limits?
It depends on which limits you push. It depends on which limits you push, because I remember at the time, at least, not that I was alive back then, but back when our parents were growing up, there were certain things you just weren't going to be able to criticize in public as a common person. There's a colored drinking fountain over there, and you can't say that kind of. And if you bucked against it, your life could be in jeopardy. But somebody, and I think a lot of times comedy pushes those limits and identifies the absurdities of some of the things that we consider to be normalities, that then we say, why do we do that? Yeah, we probably shouldn't be this way. And comedy, I'm grateful that it does have that edge to be able to present it to people and see their own idiocy.
I agree. And I think with that, the evolution of us was, we didn't have anything. We got something that sucked. Stay there. Make sure your kids can do something better. And my kids now don't know about the struggles of what we had to go through, the things we couldn't do. And we try to empower them and still remind them that, things could change. And I don't want to put too much heavy stuff on you, but So you take that into the comedy world, you know, there were the Chitlin circuits, and then there were the circuits that we wanted to get onto. And once we got onto it, Sammy Davis Jr., you know, pre-making drink Bill Cosby, you know, we got onto those circuits and we were able to entertain those people. And I think that's why even when Eddie Murphy was saying that Bill didn't like his comedy, he's like, yo, you shouldn't have to speak like that to entertain these people. But what audience was Bill Cosby talking to? You get what I'm saying? He was trying to appease one audience. Eddie Murphy is like, yo, everybody gonna get what I'm giving them and they're gonna like it. So again, it's all about who we look at as the standard maker, and is that something that we want to follow, or do we want to change the standard? And are we changing the standard for the better or for the worse?
But are you saying we being the people having determined the standard, or we being the comedians?
I'm saying across the board, it's always moving. So, you know,
so essentially, y'all comedians don't govern yourselves. You look to us as the people making you laugh to govern you.
So like for me, getting back into comedy, I go to open mics. Every open mic I get, and this is just crazy math, every open mic I get, if I can get 2 to 3 fans.
Regardless of the joke.
Regardless of the joke.
You're good.
Well, the joke to my standards. Because again, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what matters.
Yeah, but at least then you as a comedian is creating the standard. But I feel like what you're saying is, hey, that's why cancel culture has kind of surfaced, is because now we got people counseling certain comedians versus the comedians themselves governing whether or not something crosses the line.
Yes, I did Laughing Skull, and there was a transgender comedian, had a beard and everything. It was like before I changed, and I was like, wait, what? I don't even know how to receive based on the information you just gave me, everything else is like, because I see it on TV so much, but I have never been in the presence of. And of course, I showed love and everything. Hey, good set. You know, once everything.
But don't hug me.
But the point is, like, I'm of this ilk. If you're not leading January 6th riots and nobody's getting hurt by what you're saying, hey, do what you got to do. Say what everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. You go to a barbershop, everybody got a story. You go to a salon, everybody got a story. Some are, I'm not hanging with her once I get my hair done, or once he gets his hair cut. And then some people are like, yo, I can jive with that. It's the same thing in comedy. Exact same thing.
Yeah, I think we probably shouldn't try to make comedy into a profession. It still is an art. And when it becomes a profession, then yes, you probably do have those professional codes of conduct. The reason why is because when you're in a profession, everybody should be able to partake of the service that you offer. But when you have an art, my piece of art is not going to appeal to everybody. I have a niche market. And I'm just thinking about even with my recording my music, you know, I'm like, not everybody's going to buy my music. But then the people who are assigned to me, the people who love to hear this rich baritone tenor to the voice, you know, people who like to hear that, mostly women in their 60s and 70s. Ooh, made me forget I was in church. but not every, and I recognize that.
Mark, but even with that, like you said, even if your niche makes certain people laugh, it could hurt other people. That doesn't matter? Because I mean, to me, I don't care if you want to say it's an art. I mean, I'm gonna call it a profession just because if you're making money off of it, then that to me is the metric. But if you want to call it an art and your art oppresses people, even if it uplifts others.
When in your profession, when someone goes to court, there's going to be somebody who wins and someone who loses. Somebody's going to benefit, somebody's going to be hurt.
And both parties are involved in that process. It's not like I'm going to go make the white supremacists laugh and too bad these Black people over here don't even know what I'm saying. I'm riling up a group in the process, and the Black people aren't even able to start preparing to defend themselves because they don't even know that a group is being rallied.
But what
if
you
you
have to
don't-
remember is that they're coming to a comedy club and they have to be prepared for that. When you go to a gun range and
I'm
you don't
saying,
think
I'm
it,
saying if a comedian decides to go to a comedy where it's white supremacists only, like that is their audience.
no, I don't care. You're going to listen to these jokes about, because again,
No, I'm saying I
people-
wouldn't be there. I'm saying Black people wouldn't be there. So the white people would be laughing because they're white supremacists. I'm sure he's catered their jokes to them. But in the process, to me, this is what Donald Trump did.
excuse
In the
me.
process, you're rallying up a base, and the other side doesn't recognize, oh, wait a minute, I'm about to be at war. And so, because if you're going to compare it to the judicial system, both sides understand there is a dispute. But in this instance, we as Black people don't recognize that the dispute is being rallied up until we've got a Donald Trump in our face, right?
Right. I think, again, like you said, 2016, it was kind of a joke. But at the same time, we were just like, you know what? We got Barack for 8 years. Let's go ahead and get behind Hillary.
Oh, that's what we were saying.
To the 20 plus people I spoke to, yeah, that's what we were saying.
We can let a white woman do it now.
Right, we let her, I mean, Bill was her husband. He played the sax. Come on. But I think to your point is that because we were separate, we didn't realize how Donald Trump was impacting the people that he was getting up. Like, I can't believe he ran. I'm not gonna vote for him. And we went back to our circle. You get what I mean? And we weren't really paying attention to what was going on. I translate that into the comedy thing. I did a show in Snellville, and she was like, hey, it's at a church, this, and this. And I'm like, girl I went to high school with, Olivia McKenzie, shout out. And some like old white people. And I'm like, I have a lot of jokes, but what can I convey to them that they'll understand? So I started talking about marriage. You get what I'm saying? So your content and your audience, it should be a crossroads somewhere. You get what I'm saying? They're going to get some of it. If they're not fans, I don't care. But if I can make them laugh, I've made a difference because they see me and I see them and we were like, you know what I'm saying? It's a standoff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think art has a liberty sometimes. It has more license to offend and than almost anything else. If I have a picture of Jesus up in my house, there would be some Muslim who might walk in and see that and be offended by it.
White Jesus or black Jesus?
Either Jesus.
Because I might be offended if
I
it's
mean,
not the
truth of the
right
matter
color.
is you go look at the Last Supper image for a lot of people who they're like, oh my God, that's a beautiful piece of art.
Right.
And it's all white people on there. To some black people, that's offensive. And the reality is that the only way you consume what that artist is delivering is if you pay to do it. They're not in your face as saying that this is something that you absolutely need to have. This is not a service that is offered to all the people around in the country. This is by invitation only. I mean, you chose to come into this this arena here.
And although you are distorting the truth with this art, because that is not the color and that is not representative of the history and the facts.
But it's still art. And to some people will appreciate the fictitious nature of that art. And the
But
same
I don't know if they
situation-
recognize it's fictitious. I think they think it's true. And that's to me where it becomes dangerous because we're seeing it now. People are distorting history. They're changing what actually happened to fit what they would prefer to believe happened in American history. And that's dangerous.
So look at
you
the
can call it
double-edged-
art, but that's dangerous.
Look at the double-edged sword that you're painting, though, because again, let's just say a white painter painted the Last Supper with black people and it had the food was Popeyes.
But we would know that. I think there are certain things that even
But we
legal-
would say something out of frustration and it
No,
would be
okay, haha. I mean, like we know. But
Pass the watermelon. Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to solve this issue today, but we do appreciate you coming in and sharing your insights about comedy and how it's gone. I do think that laughter is still the best medicine. We can't take ourselves too seriously sometimes. Sonia always takes herself seriously when nobody else does. So
It's
Texture
unfortunate
sometimes
that they
can
don't.
go
That's why the world is where we are today, because you don't take
Take
Sonya
Sonya
and her
serious.
wisdom seriously.
now that's the funniest thing you said all day. It was
Write
like
that down.
Sonya and her wisdom.
And I said her wisdom. Sonya and her wisdom.
and her whistle. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. You're a funny girl. But thanks so much for joining us. Tell the people how they can get in contact with you if they want to book you.
Once again, thank you guys at the roundtable. Follow me at GeeWay Comedy. You find me at Mr. GeeWay on Facebook, GeeWay Comedy on Instagram, and I look forward to seeing you guys at my show. Thanks again.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy. Thanks for joining us again.
Once again, those gang signs trying to get us in trouble.
Oh, whatever. Hate on my
Well,
fraternity now.
At least we got a couple of laughs as we prepare to get into another week.
Yeah.
A lot went on this past week, so at least we can end it with a couple of chuckles as we prepare for what chaos is going to come up next week.
We'll see. Hopefully we'll look at him like, did anybody else see that?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you guys that have been tuning in, please go follow Ty. He's extremely funny. Go check out some of his shows if you're ever in the Atlanta area. And again, we thank him so much for being willing to come and be a guest on the show. You, as viewers, we also greatly appreciate you. Please comment, please like, please share, please continue to support us. You can catch us every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Facebook. You can also catch us on your favorite podcast platform. Go see some of the repeat episodes in case you haven't seen them before. And you can catch us on YouTube. And finally, if you want a repeat of this, and not only can you see it on Facebook, but if you want to hear it on your drive, tune in to Star Radio to get a repeat of the show. So we'll see you next Saturday. Thank you again for tuning in.